Morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning meeting. Lots going on. Just announced, reported by Reuters, that the Secretary of State is going to be in France with the G7 ministers on Friday to talk amongst other things, about Iran. That's a big development. And overnight, a lot of mixed reporting about what's going on with these negotiations. We'll talk all about it. Larry O'Connor's here. Hi, Moore, Hogan Gidley. Gentlemen, thank you all for being here. Let's just talk briefly. Give me a number. If you think the talks are doomed, or you think the talks will lead to a settlement, 0 to 10. 0 is doomed, 10 is a settlement. Haima.
7.
7. Hogan.
5.
Larry.
4.
4. Haima, tell me why you're so bullish.
I'm in a hopeful mood today. I don't know. I had a good workout this morning. I'm feeling good, but I don't know. It feels like this week could be a turning point on many fronts in negotiations. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be one of them.
Fascinating. We'll run through the daybook, then we'll talk about Iran and a few other stories. There's a new anti-Plattner ad that I'm eager to hear what everybody thinks. And then we'll get to your questions and comments if you're here on the platform and want to be part of the conversation. Please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, please no smack in the chat. Larry, I'm going through a tunnel currently. So why don't you go ahead and do our Cozy Earth spot, and when you're done, I'll do the daybook.
See, I love it when you call for the righty from the bullpen. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you a rhetorical question. What does comfort that carries you from nothing tonight feel like? Obviously, the answer is Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth crafts every piece with care, soft, supportive socks for your steps through the day, and breathable comforts. And Lord knows we've heard plenty about the bubble cuddle blankets. And that's why, to carve out something for my own identity, I want to talk about socks. Because if you do everything else right, and you screw around with your feet, you've screwed yourself for the day. Essential socks from Cozy Earth are going to be a game changer for you. These are small, grounding comforts designed for everyday life. Cozy Earth Essential Socks are soft, they're breathable, and thoughtfully cushioned to support you from your first step to your last. They've got 4 versatile styles: calf, quarter, ankle, and of course, Hogan Gidley's favorite, the no-show. He likes to make it look like he's going barefoot, but he's got those socks going. Each pair crafted with care to fit seamlessly into your routine. It's an everyday essential where quiet comfort meets intentional design. Let me tell you something. If you have not treated yourself to high-quality socks like Cozy Earth socks, you do not know what you're missing. I want you to discover how every detail transforms simple routines into moments of true comfort. Head to CozyEarth.com, and then you got to use the code MORNING. That'll get you 20% off. Morning, like daybreak, not like someone died. Morning. And if you get a post-purchase survey, please be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here on the morning meeting. Experience the craft behind the comfort and make every day feel intentional. Mark, are you still in the tunnel? Oh,
Now you're muted.
He's also muted. You need to unmute yourself, sir.
Me?
There it is.
There we go.
All right.
There you go. President's at the White House today, 8 o'clock executive time. The First Lady's got an event at the State Department at 10. We see the president at 1:30. White House pool participates in a swearing-in ceremony for the new Secretary of Homeland Security. We'll see if he takes questions there. That's in the Oval. 2 o'clock, policy meeting, closed press. 4 o'clock, policy meeting in the Oval, closed press. 5 o'clock, signing time, currently all closed press. Don't know what the vice president's doing. Mentioned the First Lady's event at the State Department at 10, Fostering the Future Together Global Coalition Summit. Rubio is testifying in a trial of his former roommate, former Congressman David Riviera. It's been a long-running case, charge there. I don't know. Is Rubio a prosecution witness or a defense witness? I don't know. But that's a weird way for him to be spending his day. Prosecution? Okay, thank you, Michael. The solution to the Homeland Security shutdown. We'll talk about that. It's Tuesday, so the senators are having their separate weekly lunches and then press conferences. The Senate also is still trying to figure out what to do with the Save America Act. Mike Johnson, 2:30, addresses the Hill and Valley Forum on Capitol Hill. That's defense and tech industries. And swearing-in ceremony, Mark Wayne Wallen on the Hill, 3:30. House Rules is taking up legislation to fund DHS at 4 o'clock. A few other things, but we'll skip them. All right, let's go back to the peace talks. Larry, here's what I don't get. The president wants are nothing like what the Iranians want. The president wants no nuclear, no missiles. He'd like some regime change. He'd like some access to the oil. He'd like the strait opened up. The Iranians want reparations. They want the U.S. to close all its bases in the region. I don't understand the basis of the negotiation here. So, what's the Jaime more optimistic case that this leads somewhere?
Yeah, you'll have to ask Jaime about that because it seems to me like they are completely different polarized positions on this. And I've got to assume that Iran is publicly stating what their hopes are out of these negotiations just as a face-saving measure in their culture. They can't come in and say what they're really doing, which is begging us in Israel to stop and hope that they can salvage some semblance of their government. So I'm not buying anything that they say right now. And I believe the president when he says that they're actually pretty close on some key things.
Well,
Well,
could anybody tell me what could they be close on? Name something they could be close on.
Hogan, do you have
No, nothing, no intimate knowledge of this negotiation. I don't know what, I think there are plenty of things they probably should be close on. But Iran, for whatever reason, Iran's gonna Iran. And it seems like what's happening now is they're doing their misinformation, disinformation campaigns per our usual arrangement. When they said they weren't talking to the president, but it turns out they actually are. They're negotiating with someone on our team. They said they
right?
didn't have intercontinental ICBMs. Is that what it is?
Intermediate range.
Intermediate range,
Intercontinental.
but they ballistic missiles, but they do. And they can go to apparently all the capitals in Europe. Look, I think for all their leverage that tends to be on the straits or having to do with oil, it seems as though the Trump administration has more leverage because they can do basically whatever they want to destroy and dismantle that country's not just political infrastructure, as it were, but also its brick and mortar infrastructure too. And so I think they have them over a barrel a little bit here, but still, I just don't know where this goes with the negotiations starting to happen. I just don't know Iran is going to be able to agree to what the United States wants them to do. And quite frankly, it's what the rest of the world wants them to do as well, even though they're not as involved as we are in this.
yeah, I think well, you guys just laid it out for me. I think they are running out of of tricks in their playbook right now. So my optimism is not because I think they're going to agree to all of these things that the president would like to put into place. And to Hogan's point, many other people in the country, I think they're just running out of choices. And I think to your point, Hogan, the America does have the upper hand right now. And when it comes to Asia and it comes to China in particular, and it comes to the other allies in the region who are starting to step up and enter this conversation and this mediation, they are all running out of choices as well. And they know that if this thing continues to escalate, it can get a lot worse for not only for Iran, but for much of that region and into Asia. And so I think the negotiation is going to become a little bit more pertinent today and over the course of this week because of those allies who have to get involved and because Asia is realizing that this thing, if it gets any worse, it's going to be a lot worse for them than it is for this country.
Yeah, and I think Mark, when the president says they're close on some things, I think one of the things that they could be close on, my understanding is a lot of the lower tier people in the government who weren't part of the supreme leadership and who weren't part of the sort of supreme leader brain trust, they were always somewhat skeptical, suspicious, and reluctant with the nuclear program. And I think my hunch is they've keyed in on a couple of those players who basically say, why is this worth it? Why have we been walking down this path? It's been nothing but trouble. And they haven't gained anything by it. That's what the president, that's the brass ring. If the president can walk away from this saying, it's over, we are now in control and we own all of their uranium and there's no more nuclear program, that's the biggest win he could imagine.
No, well, Mark, go ahead.
Good.
Well, I was gonna say I
You
do
got it.
think two things are we have to be mindful of. I don't think Iran's just going to hand over as much oil or any oil that the president want. And then secondly, I don't think this is going to turn into some grand Venezuela-esque sort of project. So I think those are two things to be mindful of. But someone mentioned in the chat that the Strait continues to be, leverage point for Iran. I think that's true. But we have to factor into their Asian allies and those who depend on that strait even more than we do. those individuals are starting to get a bit more fraught in the way they are handling oil in their own country. So I think this thing's going to go a little bit quicker over the next couple of weeks than we expected.
Let me ask you, let me show you something. 103, please. This is a story, it's the classic where you see stuff on Twitter and you say, big if true. Here's one that's big if true. This is from the Saudi media TV network and website, Al Arabiya. They say that Khomeini has approved the negotiations. Now, some people aren't even sure the guy's alive, so big if he's alive, big if he approved the negotiations. But could it be that the deal is just basically for the nuclear material and that'd be good enough, Larry?
I don't think that's that, but I think that's the biggest, as I said, the brass ring. I think that there will be more to that too, especially you heard the president yesterday sort of fudging a little bit on the missiles. It's like, I forget the words he used, but it made it sound like they can retain a certain amount of missile potential, but not everything. So I think that there is wiggle room. But Hogan, my understanding, their economy, Iran's in tough shape, and it's going to get tougher if we take Karg Island.
Yeah, of course. And listen, you can't trust the Iranian leadership, as far as you can throw them, obviously. So if they have a handshake agreement, whether it be the JCPOA or something else, and then continue to do what they do, as I mentioned before, Iran's going to Iran, that's going to be a problem. I do think, now, again, two different military operations, one a full-blown 20-year war, one, we're a few weeks in here. Remember how Donald Trump after Iraq was saying one of the biggest problems was they didn't take the oil. What are we doing there if we're not enriching ourselves because of it?
Yeah.
Question would be, all right, is there a plan to somewhat take control of the levers of economic influence as it relates to oil with this negotiation? Because I think in his mind, that's another clear victory, because it helps us lower prices, at least to some degree here, globally. But also it makes us even more feared, loved, respected around the globe with allies as well, to say, all right, they took control of it. Now things are going to come down. Prices are going to settle. I don't know, because again, it's not the same war by any stretch. So I don't know that that's the same mentality he has here. But I do think oil is a component of it, because I would imagine most people, when you think of Iran, if you polled most Americans that had any clue about Iran whatsoever, it'd probably be terrorism and oil would be the two things that came to their mind.
Let me ask this. If there's a negotiated settlement over the opening of the strait that's not supposed to be short-term but long-term, the Iranians are asking that they basically get a fee every time that somebody goes through. What is a negotiated settlement over the strait like? This international committee, is that what we'd be headed towards?
You broke up a little bit. But look, I just to answer your point, Mark, and to Hogan's point, I do think what I was saying earlier, that getting the oil and that deal is going to be a lot more difficult than I think the president is portraying right now. And I agree, that is going to be something that's going to be important. But look, we have to also put this into the prism, and I know, this is what we do, of politics and American politics. We're in the middle of a primary right now. And I think if the president's going to proclaim any kind of win, he's got to be very clear. We've already spent, 15 to $20 billion. We've lost, all these Americans and those who are injured. So he's got to come back here with something to prove that he's either severely weakened the Iranians in their ability to terrorize the world or terrorize America, one. And then two, this DHS deal, and whenever we talk about it in a second, is going to still be important as we put all this into context, because he's got to both also protect the homeland. He's got a new Homeland Security secretary. Things have been a little bit more fraught on that front in the last couple of weeks. And so I think Americans are looking for him to come back either with some oil or some real
deliverables.
Deliverables, yeah, exactly.
Some real deliverables. Jaime, just to follow up, because Mark's question had to do with the negotiated settlement on the Strait of Hormuz and what that might look like, and how do they control access to the Strait of Hormuz that would be to everyone's liking? Like, would there be an international body doing that?
Yeah.
Or is that just a non-starter from America's perspective?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it has to be an international body on this. And this is what, look, while our costs are high and gas is going up a little bit, this is going to hurt the Asian market and those in the Middle East much more than America. So I don't know Hogan's going to make a point on this, but I do think that the Asian continent is going to get really much more involved in this, particularly China, and I think that's where the negotiations on the strait are going to have to happen.
Hogan, if there are strings attached to the strait, can the president sell that?
I don't know, because it depends on the strings. I mean, listen, at this point though, I'm a little bit concerned by international bodies. I'm typically leery of because they have no teeth. They're both basically feckless in a whole lot of ways, and you've seen this with the namby-pambiness of these NATO countries right now in this whole situation. Look, if Russia invades Ukraine, and I was told reliably by Democrats for a long time, Ukraine was a corrupt country, their leadership was all corrupt. And then, of course, now Volodymyr Zelensky is Churchill, but whatever. We all rallied around Ukraine here. They sent how many untold billions of dollars from other nations to protect Ukraine from Russia. Everybody in that region, every European nation knows Iran is a serious problem and a serious threat, and have all talked about it for decades. And somehow, some way, they're not coming to the help or the aid of the United States. We have the same moral kind of moorings, I guess, as a lot of those European nations. But the question then becomes, if they're an ally, we have to intel share, which we obviously do, but we also have to answer the call when you have some type of military operation like this. Europe has not answered the call. So if I hear that there's some type of negotiated deal with some, you know, group of nations, part of this, it's like, this is going to be really a bad analogy, but it's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like that children's thing, Henny Penny, where she goes around asking everyone to help her make the bread, and no one helps her make the bread, and then she comes back and everybody wants to eat the bread. Like, we did all of this stuff. Now you're coming to us saying we want to help you decide what happens with the strait? No thanks. If we did it, we're going to have control of it.
Mark, if you're keeping score here, that's a Henny Penny reference and namby-pambiness. That's what the University of Mississippi Journalism School gets you.
Boom.
Got them both. Got them both. Guys, what if there's no deal by Friday?
Oh, I don't think there will be.
I think Friday.
Well, that's the 5-day deadline,
So
right? That's he had the deadline. He extended it 5 days. So then what happens? Yeah.
But you can extend it, like as we've seen, right? I mean, Trump can go, all right, there's some benchmarks here we've seen privately that we really like. We like where this is going. But remember, he got attacked both ways. So when he was negotiating with him off the rip with Kushner and Wickoff himself, other administration officials, it was, you can't trust Iran. What are you doing? What are you doing? And now he's getting attacked by the same people going, he really should be opening talks and talking to well, okay, well, which is it? So yeah, I think depending on what the negotiation or how it goes and what we're actually talking about that can be concrete, justified, verifiable, we'll wait and see. Because as you know, the president likes to get those concessions and then talk about them publicly. He likes to kind of in real time see where the people are on these types of things. And so if it looks good, who knows? But I mean, I see a world in which they get 5 days down the road and he goes, you know what? I'm not ready to strike again, but I think we're closer on some certain things, and he telegraphs that to the American people.
What do you think, Jaime?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And then I think that's what I was trying to say earlier. I think he realizes that we're in the middle of this primary season, and if he's going to come back and proclaim a win, he's got to have some clear wins. And I think as we get to this Friday deadline, he's going to start figuring out what 1 or 2 wins look like to keep this thing going, because I don't think that we're going to have a deal by Friday.
Well, there's also a school of thought in D.C. that all of this that we're going through right now, the president's tweets, giving the deadline, then suspending the deadline, and his remarks on the tarmac, and we'll give it 5 days, it's all actually a distraction and buying time for more military to be in place for the next military action. I mean, that's happening right now as we speak. We know that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Oh, that might be it. I think we have officially the time that we've been waiting for has come, Mark. We have lost you, but you can go ahead and text me a few more questions if you like.
Kogan.
Oh, there he goes.
Now try. Can you repeat that, Mark?
Uh-oh.
The answer is no, but he will text me the question and we'll follow up with that, because I think the sort of coda here on the peace talks is, if nothing happens by Friday, if there is an extension as military is being moved into place, what does that mean politically here with everything
Here's
else
my
going on?
question.
Hogan, I'll start with. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
What is BB? What is BB thinking now? Do you guys think?
I
Oh, the
think,
BB angle.
yeah, listen, I think Bibi and his government, um, as in support of these operations as they are, believe they're as close as ever to crushing the head of this snake. And I think they're going to try and do whatever it takes to make sure that happens, whether it be more deals with America, whether it be going out of their own and striking some things here that America doesn't know about or hasn't approved. I think they feel like they are as close as ever to protecting their homeland in perpetuity, and they're going to try everything they can to do it. That's what I think. But I will say real quickly, Bibi does have a keen sense too of the not politics necessarily, but of the public perception of how it looks too. So he's got to be strategic in that should he decide to go ahead and strike a few lethal blows.
Maybe. I don't know, Jaime. Since October 7th, he's been pretty YOLO about public
Yeah.
opinion, hasn't he?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think one BB cares what anyone thinks except BB and his friends, and I think he's gonna keep going as far as he
Well,
can.
wait. Or more charitably, he is putting the interests of his nation and the safety of his nation first to protect them despite public pressure in America.
Sure.
True.
Sure. And I think he's going to go beyond that. And I think, for BB, his goals and our goals, while there's a Venn diagram, I do think there is some divergence, and he's going to continue this, beyond what I believe deliverables for America will sort of be over the next couple weeks, couple months.
Right.
And I think he's okay with going full-fledged with or without us. And I think he's happy that he has some partners in this case, but he's going to go as far as he needs to.
Mark, it has been interesting to witness the parallel lines of these two missions from America's and Israel's perspective, and at times they're wavering a little bit, but they keep bringing it back to parallel. But how long that lasts, who knows? As we've said before, I think Netanyahu and the Israeli government's biggest fear is that the president, for domestic political purposes, ends this earlier than they think it should be ended.
Yeah.
They're still going to be better off than they were before, even if it ended right now.
Sure. Agreed.
Yep. So finally, politically, Hogan and Jaime, as this is playing out, of course, you've got the DHS funding showdown going on, and obviously this is going to be affecting the midterms. At what point is that the breaking point? And who's winning right now in Washington with this war hanging over the political realities domestically? Hogan, we'll start with you.
I'm going to give Republicans a slight edge on winning at this point, only because Democrats now have stepped on themselves messaging wise in multiple interviews, up to and including Senator Murphy, I think, either last night or this morning, saying, our number one priority are undocumented immigrants, which is insane for a United States senator.
It is, Hogan, but I got kind of, just so you know, I've seen that clip making the rounds. That's actually from 2024. It's still what they believe, I think, but
Sure.
That clip wasn't last night.
Yeah, no, I think it's what they believe too. But also, yeah, okay, but it posted last night.
Yeah.
But the long lines and the ad campaign by the NRSC, which has been quite good actually. That our friend Bo Snerdley, Rush Limbaugh's producer, formerly put up a tweet showing this ad from the NRSC saying, if you like these long lines, thank a Democrat. This is the political messaging that will inevitably occur moving forward. Democrats will say Republicans control everything. It's like, yeah, but there's some rules there. Anyway, point being, people, when they start to suffer, they do look for people to blame. And oftentimes that's the folks in control of DC, which right now is Republicans in both the House, Senate, and the White House. However, for the first time in my lifetime, Republicans have done a pretty good job beating back those allegations, explaining what's going on. Now, how far that holds is anybody's guess, especially when the lines get longer and the wait times get worse. But right now, I think they're winning a little bit, and also depends on what happened. What's the outcome here? I think matters too.
We'll get more into what we're learning about where these DHS talks are going, but really my question, just to wrap things up on the war right now, is domestically in DC, who is sort of winning the narrative on this? Because the Democrats are still, are they? I don't know, Jaime. Is it still an illegal war? Is it still there was no imminent threat? Is this? I mean, I don't even know what the Democrats' position on this engagement is.
Look, I think we've got to back up and sort of deconflate these things for just 1 second.
Yeah.
I think what Democrats have said and what Democrats are saying right now, one, they are the opposition party, and that's okay. This country is allowed to have an opposition party. And as Donald Trump has made, the president has made decisions to either go to Venezuela or talk about Greenland or go into Iran and do airstrikes, I think the Democrats have been very clear that the president, when he should come to Congress either to ask for some sort of permission or to give some sort of idea of what he's going to do. And he hasn't done that in the past, particularly with this war. There were instances as this war started that Democrats believe that it was illegal to go that far, and they've articulated that. And so I think Democrats have been very clear. Now, when it comes to the DHS funding, Democrats decided to go this route because I know we have a short-term memory, but before there was the war in Iran, there was ICE in Minnesota and all over the country doing things that were while wearing masks, killing 3 Americans, hurting others, and just causing all kind of chaos. And so Democrats came to the table and said, if we want to continue to have some sort of immigration program, let's reform how ICE is engaging with Americans. And so the government was shut down because of that. And so I don't think anyone wins during a shutdown. So I don't think Democrats are winning or Republicans are winning. I think Americans are losing. As someone who's recently traveled, it's not great. And so when it comes to the war and putting those things together, I think I still don't think anyone's winning. I don't think Democrats are winning or Republicans are winning. But I do think that this war does bring a second level to this conversation that Democrats are allowed to say, hey, while President Trump is in Iran and all over the country, he's not focusing on bringing your costs down. In fact, they're going up and you're less safe.
Here,
Hogan, hold your thought, because I promise the elements we're about to show you will add to, I think, what you want to bring to the table here. Let's start with number 111 here, new ad that just dropped that I think sort of encapsulates where the politics of this is going.
Senior officials involved in negotiations tell Fox there is a deal framed out to fund DHS, and a vote could be as early as Thursday. It would not include ICE reforms or ICE funding, but roughly 6% of the budget. Senate Republicans would then attempt to pass the Save America Act in a follow-up reconciliation bill and restore that funding. For more, let's go to GOP Senator John Cornyn. Senator, I know this is a moving target, but can you expand on what we're reporting?
Well, Democrats have been adamantly opposed to doing anything that would fund ICE, but fortunately, as you know, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, we provided about $75 billion for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. So what we can do is pass the rest. We can pay the TSA workers and the rest of the Department of Homeland Security, and then do what we did this last summer, which is pass another reconciliation bill that will not only fund ICE, but do so without handcuffing them and limiting their ability to enforce our immigration laws. And we can pass the Save America Act according to the budget rules. It's going to be a little bit of a procedural challenge, but I'm confident we can do it, and we can't give up on this important issue.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the narrative this morning. That was based on Fox's reporting with senior officials. Politico, number 106 here. Politico also had an article detailing that this potential path forward. So with all of that said, Hogan, is this where the Republicans need to go? It is fascinating that they sent Cornyn out there to speak on Fox News about this, isn't it? What do you think? Is this the path forward here? Because it doesn't seem like the White House wants this to be the way forward.
interesting, Cornyn, of course, because he's in a difficult primary in his own state, trying to gain some conservative bona fides here. Let me get there, but first let me say, Jaime made an interesting point, which is it's okay to have an opposition party. That is correct. Republicans are often the opposition party when they're in the minority as well. The question is, what are you opposing? So the Tea Party patriots, for example, the Tea Party started because they were sick of being taxed too much. That's an opposition, I think, politically that's good. And I think there's some shrewdness here being left on the table that ought not to be. If you're the party that's opposed to preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, probably not the best position. If you're the party opposed to cleaning up our city streets, probably not the good position. Now, the argument they will make will be a different thing. It's not really about that. It's about other things. Fine. But that's the battle. That's the fun fight we have in these elections. And this DHS issue is one of those, I think, that's quite frankly a good line of delineation, demarcation between where the two parties are and what they want to fund and how they want to fund it, what the purpose of these agencies are as well. And this particular shutdown is the third in a line of shutdowns that is designed, again, I can't understand the politics of this unless I'm just missing it, to protect illegal aliens. Because Democrats in this decision to not fund also wants to defund Customs Border Protection, which again would open the border, which is how we got here in the first place. So I don't know if the White House is going to be warm to the argument that, hey, here's all we can get through. And on top, give you the SAVE Act or make sure only Americans participate in American elections. We'll do that later, further down the road, which is, kicking the can down the road in Congress basically means no, ever. So I don't know where they're going to come down on this. I know Trump wants to get things done. I know he wants to fund these agencies. I know he wants the people to quit suffering. I get all that. I just don't know how much he's willing to give up.
How far is he willing to go with this?
So quickly, because we just have some developing stories. So quickly, I just need an answer, yes or no. Will the funding for DHS be resolved one way or the other by Easter week for Easter travel?
Yes.
Jaime?
I think
Hogan
so.
says yes. Jaime? All right, that's 2 yeses. Now, Reuters is now reporting that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, is planning to attend the G7 meeting right outside of Paris. On the agenda will be Ukraine and the Middle East. This, according to the to reporting by Reuters. That's a different headline, I think, from Reuters. I don't know if you have this element. This just came in. It said that the principal deputy spokesperson, Tommy Pigott, said that the areas of focus are going to include Russia-Ukraine war, situation in the Middle East, threats across the world to peace and stability. Well, that's a hefty agenda, isn't it? That meeting is going to take place this Friday. Jaime, what does that tell you, that they're sending the Secretary of State to those meetings and all of that is on the table?
Well, it tells us that there's probably already been more negotiation behind the scene than we know. One, and then two, I mean, look, the Secretary of State has a lot of credence in this administration than with the president. And so if you're sending him there, it seems like there's maybe a step two to the negotiation, and there's some I think something I don't know if there's going to be a full deal by Friday, but I think some next steps will come out of this, because I don't think Marco Rubio is going to leave without having something to bring back to the president.
Hogan, does it surprise you that Russia-Ukraine is in the headline on this one as well, considering everything that's going on in the Middle East?
No, because I do think, as I point out at the beginning, and maybe this is what they're trying to do, there's so many like maybes, what ifs here, I don't know. But the jarring juxtaposition of the country rallying to a nation like Ukraine against Russia, excuse me, the world rallying to them, and then not doing it in this instance, there could be like a chance for Rubio to point out the obvious inconsistency there and the radical stupidity of saying we should protect this one place but not the other. Is a little bit jarring, and maybe that's what he's trying to accomplish. Just kind of lump them together.
You also probably can't get G7 to sit at the table unless you agree that you'll talk about Ukraine and Russia.
I think that's in the charter.
And then there's this. We have a full agenda, but all of this stuff is developing during our morning meeting. The New York Times is reporting that the Saudi prince, bin Salman, is pushing Trump to continue this Iran war, saying that this is a historic opportunity to remake the region. I mean, Hogan, there's no secret here that the Saudis and Iran have been at loggerheads. Everybody thinks in America, or a lot of people think, that the Middle East is all just one big, hegemony, but
From
it's
my
not.
opinion.
In fact, historically, the Saudis and the Iranians have been at each other's throats, and clearly Saudi Arabia sees an opportunity here. So they may be putting just as much pressure on Trump to see this through as Bibi is.
Yes, possibly so. And for a long time, I think it's been an underreported story, but Saudi seems to be oh no, America, please don't do that. Please, no, stop right now, please. And then wink,
Right,
wink,
right.
hey, here's an elbow. It'd be fine. Remember, one of the reasons we got the Abraham Accords in the first place was because Donald Trump in the first administration was able to rally the region around the thought that Iran's nuclear capability was a serious threat. Everyone in that region well understood that, and they thought, all right, we're going to put our swords down at each other's throats for a minute and all come together around that fact. This is kind of another extension of that, I think, that I think Saudi looks as, hey, maybe we could stand not just to make some money here, but also get rid of one of our massive geopolitical adversaries in the process.
Such a cynic, thinking that the Saudis are just interested in more oil money. But Jaime, does this give the president and the administration even more cover here domestically, as there are more international voices saying stay the course?
No, I don't think it gives more cover necessarily. I do think it will give him a little bit more fodder to continue. But I think, look, this is still got to be in the prism of the midterm elections, and I think things are just going to be a little different than they were last year or they will be next year for the president as he makes these decisions. And I don't think, quite frankly, Americans are looking at the Saudis for any indication to continue this war or not. I think if the president comes back with some clear deliverables and he can say that he's eliminated or close to eliminating the Iranian nuclear capabilities, then that will be more of a win than listening to the Saudis or the Israelis for that fact.
All right, we're going to get to questions from the community and bring you all into the conversation. In fact, I'm predicting it'll be a conversation like no other. But I do have two more quick things I want to hit here. First of all, I'm sure you saw the arguments yesterday before the Supreme Court having to do with mail-in ballots, having to do with allowing ballots to trickle in after Election Day and counting. It's insane that we have, in my opinion, that we even have to have this debate. Hogan, based on your understanding of how the arguments went, how do you think this decision is going to come down, and will it affect the midterm elections?
I don't know. I don't know that they can, fix all this stuff, whatever the ruling is, by the midterms, because as the states largely have control over their own election processes. But
the Constitution says Election Day, and that most of the arguments yesterday was, does Election Day mean Election Day?
Oh yeah, no. Look, what works in Massachusetts doesn't work in Maine or Mississippi or Montana for election structures. But I will say, Republicans and Democrats have been complaining about the outcome of elections and their validity for a very long time. 60+% of Republicans do not believe that Joe Biden actually won that election against Donald Trump, but 60+% of Democrats do not believe that Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump either. And rules like this are a large reason why. It is not election year. It is not election month. It is not election week. It's not election season. It is election day. And if you can't get your ballot in by election day, one word, tough.
Hogan.
That is
Hogan Gidley. That kind of talk
do.
is that sort of talk is a threat to democracy, and you know it. Jaime, will this decision impact the midterms? How do you think it's going to come down?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they will. And I do think, I mean, looking at what this Supreme Court has done over the course of their tenure, I have no faith that they're going to uphold this, and they will likely say that you have to vote on the mailing day and then the whatever. But look, I think what the Democrats have said, and what I fully believe in my heart, while we want these things to be safe and legal, and we want all Americans who can vote to vote, this is about bringing more people into the democracy. This is not about excluding people from voting. If you are legal and you have your shit together, you should be able to vote. And it shouldn't be and Hogan, I don't have kids, so I can vote on election day, but there are people who have kids, who have jobs, who have all these things. And the access to early voting, the access to voting when they can, with the deadline being election day, is far more greater than stopping people from voting. And so I think we need to figure out a way to make sure that these elections are safe, fair, and legal, but making sure, look at those numbers down in Texas. While those Democrat numbers were fantastic and some of the Republican numbers were okay, it was still such a lower turnout for people who are registered to vote. And so I want to find ways to get more people engaged in the process, to get
But
more
that's not
registered
because of
voters
the
able to
process
vote.
necessarily,
And
Hyman.
so I don't want to keep putting up barriers to access. And so if we want
It's not a
people
barrier
to
to
have,
get a
if we want people to
ballot.
have people to have IDs and all these things, let's look and make sure that they have access to getting those things. Let's not just put a rule up on Friday for Monday.
All right.
Let's
Well,
make sure that we have the resources to bring more people into this process, not just exclude them.
They're there. The process is there for more
all right.
people to get involved. By the way, just because people don't show up to vote, it doesn't mean there was a barrier. They may not like any of the candidates. And quite frankly, if Jasmine Crockett and Tallarico were on the ballot, I wouldn't be that motivated either.
Well, I mean, they were
Right.
pretty. I mean, the numbers in Texas were pretty high, so the Democrats were pretty
But I will
motivated.
say,
It seems like
but I will
the
say,
Republican
you
vote was
can't have
suppressed.
it. You can't have it coming and going. You can't give somebody a month ahead of time to vote, and then give them 7 days after election day too. Like it's
You're not giving them 7 days. If they have it postmarked by that date, that's all you're giving them. Not you're not
All
you're
right,
not you're not giving the
The good
ballot
news
after the
is the
election
Supreme
day.
Court is going to decide this
You know,
instead of you two.
It's not
because you're
7
never
additional
gonna reach your-
days. It's just
All right.
process.
Finally, we'll do this quickly and then go straight to the community. But we got to play this ad. It's from Governor Mills, caught in a very, very tough primary fight against Graham Plattner. Let's take a look at this.
I made a lot of comments that I'm not like ashamed of.
What comments has Graham Plattner made? Plattner wrote that women worried about rape need to, quote,
not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to.
Plattner wrote to avoid rape, women should, quote,
Act like an adult for sake.
and called people who disagreed with him
Fags
and
retarded.
I made a lot of comments that I'm not like ashamed of.
Graham Plattner. The closer you look, the worse it gets.
I'm Janet Mills,
All right.
and I approve this message.
Don't F with Janet. All right. So you've got 3 players involved here for this primary coming up the first week of June. You've got Governor Mills, you've got Mr. Plattner, and you've got Senator Collins. I want you to rank 1, 2, and 3. Who is helped most by that ad, Haima?
I mean, we're in a primary, so I don't want to get too down on Governor Mills for going this route. I mean, it's not as bad as Cornyn was in Texas against Ken Paxton. I think in some ways Susan Collins, this helps Susan Collins in some ways because she's able to continue to run her race while the Democrats are fighting it out like they're doing in Texas. And so I say Susan, then the governor, and then Graham.
And Mr. Plattner. All right. Would you rank it in that order as well, Hogan?
Probably.
Without mentioning Texas and John Cornyn and Ken Paxton.
I think
Haima.
Collins stands to gain most from that for obvious reasons, not being involved in that mud and that muck. I will say, what a devastating ad, because in large part, if you can ever use a candidate's own words against them, it's usually the really most difficult thing to spin your way out of. And I've not seen Plattner try to spin his way out of it, which is also interesting too, doubling down, which again, only a few candidates I've ever seen can do that and be successful. One of them's name's Donald Trump.
What's worse, using his words against him or that video? I still don't have the explanation of the video of him in the dingy gray boxer briefs in a bar showing off his Nazi tattoo.
Both are perfect together. It's look, I have to say this though, you guys, and we've said that, and people have really come for Governor Mills and her age and her ability to be a formidable candidate against Susan Collins. But this is a second ad that she's continuing to prove that she's got some fight left in her. And so I got to give her some kudos for that.
Yeah.
Well, or is this a sign that they're desperate?
Regardless.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Regardless of who the nominee, regardless of who the Democratic nominee is, who do you guys make the favorite in that race right now in the general?
I still say Susan Collins as a stand.
Collins.
100% Collins.
So this is what my monologue is about. This is what my monologue is about on next up. If Democrats can't beat Susan Collins, they can't take the majority. They have to beat her to take the majority. And none of us think she's going to lose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's correct. As of now.
Look, just about 2 months ago, Democrats weren't even talking about even gaining much in the Senate. So I'm not going to waste my time on taking the majority in the Senate. I think we're going to take the House back and we're going to figure out ways to make inroads in the Senate and go for 2028. But I think talking about taking the Senate is a fool's errand right now for the Democrats, and they've got to talk about each of these races individually.
All right.
I totally
we're going to turn it over to
the conventional wisdom is different.
All All right, Mark. Mark is still here, so I wanted to make sure he got his, and I agree with you. We'll get to the community in just a moment. But first, did you set a new budget for the new year? Was that one of your New Year's resolutions? You're going to live by this budget. How's that working out for you? Did you get all of those holiday credit card bills coming in with all of your Christmas and Hanukkah and your righteous Kwanzaa presents coming in? Or you're paying the bills off, aren't you? And now your budget is blown away. Well, that's why there's Upside. The Upside app works by connecting users with personalized cashback offers. Gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, all the things that cost way too much right now. It lets you earn real money on everyday purchases by claiming deals in the app, paying with a linked card or with the app itself, and then cashing out earnings via bank, PayPal, or gift card. It really is that simple. There's over 100,000 participating locations, and that means cashback opportunities are everywhere you already go. That's the secret here. These are stores and places that you're already buying stuff from. Why not get some of that cash back? You open up the app, you claim an offer, you pay with your card like normal, and then cha-ching, you get paid. That's it. And I'm talking about, well, let's get you right to the deal, because Upside has already given back $1 billion to its users. I want you to find out how much more you can earn. What you want to do is download the app. It's free. It's the Upside app. Use the promo code MARK, M-A-R-K, just like the gospel. You'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. It's like the war never happened with that kind of deal. Use promo code MARK right now. Download that free Upside app and get started today. All right, gentlemen, let's get to the community. First up, hold on. I've got my notes here. They're feeding me information. First up is David. David, welcome to the community. This is your first time, David? Tell us where you're from and how you found the morning meeting.
Not the first time on 2A, but first time in the morning meeting. David from LA. My comment slash question slash concern is kind of separate to all this, but also embedded in all this, which is anti-Semitism. A few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, there was a attack in a Michigan synagogue, and immediately after, reporters like Ryan Grimm, other people started saying that, oh, well, Israel killed his brothers, and that's why he did it. Israel, Hezbollah, and Lebanon all confirmed that the guys killed were terrorist part of Hezbollah's units that were launching rockets. In Ro Khanna's district, there were people that were attacked for speaking Hebrew. On London on Monday, there was a bunch of ambulances that were torched, community service ambulances to the Jewish community. They serve everyone, not just Jews. So yet they were torched overnight. And this seems to be like a rising trend, and not a lot of people really are concerned or talk about it, except for really Jews. And this is just a growing trend that you see kind of rising more, where violence against Jews are justified or excused as this is what could be expected when you attack people in other nations, even though this doesn't happen to any other community. You don't see Muslims being attacked, and definitely it's not excused if they are attacked. And if we just look at history, this is something, whether it's approved by the government or not approved by the government, it always incites mobs, it always incites violence, it always incites persecution. And I'm just really worried that as this continues to go on, more of this type of stuff just continues happening. And I don't really see anyone really concerned or talking about it except for the Jewish community in general.
All right, David, thank you for that. And it's a really good sort of an overview of all of the events that are, you're right, disconcerting. And your little munchkin is the cutest thing in the world. So extra points there.
You want to say hi?
Hi. Hi. Haima, respond to what David had to say here, and I guess sort of voice what you think should be done or should be articulated either by our elected officials, by our media, or both.
Look, as a Black American from the South, I understand this very well, and my heart continues to go out to Jewish Americans who are having to to answer for what's going on in Israel and what Bibi Netanyahu is doing, and to be taken to task for that. And I think that's unfair across the board. And so I think there's not much to say. Is that we call it out and we try and do our best to stop it.
I think
Hogan?
I think a couple of observations here, and this has always been fascinating to me. And David, thank you for the question. It's thoughtful, and there's some concerning pieces to this for sure. One of which is colleges and universities. If you were gay on a college campus and people circled around you and started hurling anti-gay slurs or slogans at you, the university would shut down. There'd be an investigation. There'd be listening sessions and all this stuff, rightly so. If you were black on a college campus and you were surrounded by KKK members or some type of other group and yelled at, there'd rightly be a shutdown and things happen. If you're Jewish, though, there's some kind of weird carve out where that's okay. We're going to keep allowing this to happen. That's just free speech. And when you've seen these attacks in America recently on American soil by anti-Semites toward the Jewish community, I've not heard a single imam or a single mosque come out and say that was wrong. We're actually a religion of peace, guys. What are you doing? If someone were to go in the name of Christ and kill somebody or throw a bomb at somebody and say that's what God is all about, every pastor across this country would come out immediately and say, no, that is not what God is about. This is a lie. This is heresy. This person is completely manipulating the Bible, which is based on a religion of trying to get people to love each other and love Christ. You don't hear that in the Islamic community with attacks on Jews, and I think that's a real problem. And I would argue in this election, I've said this to Mark Halperin, our fearless leader, before. I think two issues in this upcoming midterm campaign will be the new men and women's sports. The niche issues that allow people to go out there and vote for Republicans, fraud of these crazy billions of dollars being spent in the Somali community, in the hospice community in California, the Medicaid fraud, et cetera, and radical Islamic terrorism against Americans, whether they be Jewish or any other faith. I think those two issues are going to be kind of under the surface, and if Republicans play their cards right, I don't know that the blue wave is going to happen as bigly, if at all.
So Hogan,
can I just say one thing, Larry?
Yeah, sure, Jaime,
I think we have to be mindful of two things. One, we have to not Muslims are not the only anti-Semitic people, and so there are Christians and atheists and others who are anti-Semitic, and so we've got to be careful to when we're talking about anti-Semitism to not cross over to Islam anti-Islamophobia. So I think you don't have to be one or the other. You can say I don't want the Jewish people to be persecuted, and I also don't want Muslims to be persecuted, and I also don't want Christians to be persecuted. And so you don't have to switch it, So I just want to be mindful of those two things.
Yeah,
that's
enough. Not. If you're Christian, you're not anti-Semitic. They're incongruent.
I don't think that's true.
Whereas that's the teaching of Islam.
That's not true.
That's different.
Hogan, you've worked with both the president, and I think you know him personally, and you also know the ambassador to Israel, and you've worked with him rather personally, and you know their hearts when it comes to our support for the Jewish people and for Israel. Is this an opportunity for the president? Because he hasn't spoken about it much. He has grandchildren who are Jewish. His beloved son-in-law, who is, and his daughter are Jewish. Is this an opportunity that the president should be using his bully pulpit to advance these ideas? I understand you think it is political benefit, and yes, of course, everything that happens is for a political benefit at the end of the day, I guess. But he also could make a big impact if he spoke on these issues a little bit more. Is this a missed opportunity?
I don't know that it's a missed opportunity yet. I do think it is an opportunity for him, though, to have that conversation and be honest with the American people and kind of articulate, as I mentioned, the things that I believe will kind of help determine the outcomes of these elections. Because as a president and as someone, I know his heart. I know he loves the Jewish people, of course, but President Trump does not like death and destruction, period. No matter where it is, no matter what the reason or rationality, as wrongheaded as may be, around the country or the world is articulated, he wants peace. And him coming out and having those conversations directly to the American people where he's best, I think would be a good thing for him to do.
David? You want to give
Yeah,
us
I
a closing statement on that?
yeah, I don't think if you are Christian that makes you anti-Semitic. Though if you look at history, a lot of persecution has happened because Jews didn't accept Christ as their savior, and that is very far in the past. So I don't want to make it sound like that's even remotely recent or even somewhat whatever. But there are a lot of reasons why people ultimately hate Jews in or have prejudice against Jews. In 2022, when Kanye made his comments um about Jews, you saw a massive spike in anti-Semitic incidents in New York following up until October 7th, which caused another massive spike in anti-Semitic incidents. So it
Yeah.
just seems like this is not something that's related to religion. It just seems that when people have prejudice against Jews, a lot of people don't really want to talk about it or care about it. It just is kind of left to its vices and issue.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it. Have a great Passover next week, David. You and your whole family. Do we have time to fit in one more member of the community here? What do we think, guys?
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw it in there. I think we can do it if we keep our responses pithy. Give me who's next up.
I see what you did there.
You decide.
Next up.
There it is. Joshua Johnson with his epic beard. Joshua, thanks for being part of the community. Remind everybody where you are and why you have a cheetah on your wall.
Oh,
other than to match your hoodie.
Yeah, because I've got a big leopard print problem. That's really that's really the end of it right there.
We'll leave the rest to our imagination. Go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, just do that. Nice in solidarity with Hogan Gidley today.
Little
B-boy love.
That's all right.
B-boy love.
SAVE Act. I think the issue with the SAVE Act, and I don't think it's going to pass. Issue with the SAVE Act, it like so many things that Republicans try to pass. Even with abortion bills at state levels, they'll do this. They put in things that are extra and don't talk about them. Okay, the SAVE Act is not a voter ID law. The SAVE Act includes a private right of action to sue by a member of the public who thinks that an election official has violated the law. Okay, that's a big poison pill because that's not a criminal law. That's a civil right of action. So civil right of action has a lower judicial, evidentiary standard called preponderance of the evidence. And that's a big problem. Like, that's a big problem for me, someone who appreciates voter ID laws. We have voter ID laws here in Virginia.
Joshua, thank you. And I just because we're crunched on time, it's a good point. Yeah. Although if it's such a poison pill, it's interesting Democrats don't raise that issue. Instead, they make it sound like women don't know how to get an ID. Well, but Jaime, will the SAVE Act pass? If not, what will the Republicans' plan B be?
I don't think you will, and I think they'll have to figure out a way to go state by state.
Hogan?
I don't think it passes either unless they do a really, really stripped down version of it, and then try to claim victory for that.
I think you may be right there, Hogan, on getting a stripped down version, maybe photo ID only. But also keep an eye. They're going to make an attempt to do this in reconciliation. I don't think they can, but they're going to make an attempt.
No, and I don't even think that falls into reconciliation because it's not budgetary, and I don't know how the parliamentarian.
I agree, but based on some of the senators, I just interviewed one of them this morning, and she made it sound like they were going to try to fit it into reconciliation. It won't get through the parliamentarian. Yeah. All right, Mark, are you heading over? You are not heading over to SiriusXM's Megyn Kelly channel 111.
That would be. I'll be there. I'll be there.
How are you? Oh, I see.
Trust me. Trust me. I've got a scheme. I'll be there.
All right. Then everyone head on over to Megyn Kelly's channel to pick up the morning meeting from this point forward for the next hour. And then, of course, the after show with Professor Kenny. And also, of course, Two-Way tonight live at 5 p.m. You don't want to miss that. And if you're interested in being an investor in Two-Way or sponsor Two-Way, please reach out to us and give us all your information. Invest at twoway.tv. We're growing, as you can see. We're international. We can even do this on a train. Sounds like green eggs and ham, but I'm not going to do that.
Don't forget the new episode of Next Stop drops later today. 1 hour breaking down the 9 Senate races that will decide control of the body. And again, this conventional wisdom that Democrats are going to take the Senate. It's just not right now if you go race by race.
There you go. I did forget, but thank God you were there to clean it up. Thanks, Mark. Travel well and be safe.
Thanks great to you three. Appreciate it.
Right.
Gentlemen, what an honor and a pleasure it was, as always, to have a conversation with you. Morning meeting will be back tomorrow. Hogan, are you going to CPAC?
I'm not this year. It's my first time not going, and I can't even tell you how many decades, but I can't make it.
I will be heading to CPAC, and I'll give you a full report from Dallas as the week develops.
You will bring down the house, most assuredly.
It will be fascinating.
Me too, Larry.
All right, gang. Thank you to the community as always. We'll see you tomorrow morning.